no, you're fine.
So it's a separation from home, whether it's, 10 minutes or 10 hours away, right? If you're separated from home and the familiar people and things, then it can be distressing. It can be exciting, but it can also be something that creates some distress and it's new, right? And it's an adjustment. Everybody in life has to navigate different adjustments, whether it's a new boss or a new job or a new stage of life or sending your kid to college or coming away to college, right? That's kind of what we're talking about here. Our first year students are adjusting through this new environment and navigating that change. Then there's the separation anxiety. I don't know if anybody's kids had that going into like kindergarten or whatever. Like it can be a psychological condition that young children experience, right? But they're not the only ones. I think it's human to feel some kind of way when we're separated from the things and the people that we love, right? So but when we go to the level of separation anxiety, it's typically excessive. It's not just, oh my gosh, I miss home, I really miss you, I can't wait to see you again. It's like it's a physiological and emotional feeling that people experience that is very distressing. Next slide. All right, stress and anxiety, part of everyday life. Our students interchange those two words, stress and anxiety, or freaking out. I hear that a lot. I'm freaking out. I'm overwhelmed. And so really stress, as we all know, is how our body responds to situations that we perceive to be overwhelming, right? I may not be overwhelmed with my to-do list today, but somebody else with the same to-do list may not have the capacity and may feel overwhelmed or vice versa. We feel like we don't think that we can meet the demands of the situation. So coming to college, it's no longer high school. School is like studying is harder. Everything is different. It's stressful. It just is what it is, right? It can have physical, emotional, and behavioral impact on us. Then there's the anxiety, right? So like everybody experiences stress, but anxiety is more like also known as like worry or angst. Like anxiety is like, I can't stop thinking about it. I'm thinking about my to-do list. I'm thinking about making a to-do list to do my to-do list. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do tomorrow? What about next week? Like that kind of a thing, right? You're just kind of overcome with like ruminating thoughts and fears. And these are often show themselves in physiological symptoms. So stomach aches, headaches, gosh, I don't know. I can't sleep, don't have an appetite. A lot of when our body gets activated and goes into that fight or flight response mode with anxiety, it really can wreak havoc. And then students struggle with doing what they need to do. And then there's this anxiety disorder, if you will, right? So let's talk about like that continuum. That is when the anxiety symptoms have gotten to a place where they are really messing with your life. You're not going to class. You're not able to go to your job. You aren't taking a shower. Your friends, you're pulling away from friends. Like it's physical and emotional symptoms that impact your everyday life. Hope that makes sense. All right, next slide. So then homesickness, let's just talk about that for a minute, right? Because I think it's very common. It's very natural for students to experience that. Not all students do. Some do for a long time, right? But doesn't mean they can't be successful. I think about, my time when I went away to college a long time ago, and it's a different environment. It's physically different. A lot of times our students come and they're not accustomed to sharing bathrooms or rooms or small spaces. Food is definitely not home cooking. There's a lot of new people. There's diverse people, maybe people they've never had an opportunity to interact with before. There's new demands on their time. There's challenges. Sometimes our students come to us like really competent academically, but then they come to college and they have to adjust with how they study. And that home base where they would go home at night and feel kind of safe and connected and grounded isn't there. It's a different space, right? I say it typically lasts 2 to 4 weeks, but it can last a day. It can last a month. We really hope that by the 6th week, students have found a new home here at Brockport and that homesickness has gone away. Doesn't mean they don't miss home or miss the people they left behind, but they don't feel it's affecting them as much. And so I always say students are going to experience adjustment and they may experience difficulties, and there's a lot of resources on campus to help. So we'll get to that in a minute. Next. So when should you be concerned? I mean, parents, I don't know. I had a kid go away to college, and let me tell you, she couldn't wait to go, and then she couldn't stay. She would call me, and I'd be stressing, I'd be anxious, I'd be freaking out because I didn't know how to help her. So, the things that are important to really pay attention to that are concerns that we want, to be able to help the students with is if they're spending excessive amounts of time alone, they're isolating, they're thinking about the people and places at home and not engaging in the here and now with campus activities outside of maybe they go to class, right? And they're just kind of in their room. They're not going to the dining hall. They're not sleeping. There's a big change maybe in how their patterns are for eating and sleeping. They're feeling fearful. They don't want to explore the new places, their new environment. They don't want to meet new people. They're too scared. Oh, maybe they won't like me. Then they feel lonely. And sometimes there's some pressure to fit in, and they're worried about what other people will think of them. And that is again, a common human thing. We all kind of want to make a good first impression. But again, these are things that are so impactful that the person is kind of paralyzed by it. Like they don't want to leave the room because they're too afraid of like somebody saying something about them or thinking badly of them. So those are things I would definitely want to know, like how we could help. Go ahead. Next slide, please. So we always tell our students every day, all day, and Alex probably repeated it 1,000,000 times during orientation, get involved. Students can overcome their homesickness by creating a new home here. They get involved in clubs and organizations. They find their people with common interests. There's other options like intramural sports. Residence halls all have programs and RAs that will facilitate these things. Maybe have them get an on-campus job. There's a lot of really good research that supports students' success is connected to all of those things. I always say, create a homey environment. Get some familiar things. You may not be able to be home, but you can have pictures. You can have favorite things around you. I don't know, stuffed animals, like decorations, things that remind you of home. And then encouraging people to talk about it, right? They're not alone. If someone's feeling homesick or they're struggling with something, I guarantee you somebody else is as well. They have a lot of support here on campus. RAs, academic advisors, peer mentors, counseling. There's lots more too. All right, next slide, please. So how can I help? I'm a parent. I'm getting that phone call. They're crying. They don't want to leave their room, or they miss home. They want to come home. Okay. Validate that. I mean, I get it. Like, I'm sorry. This is so hard. Tell them you understand. Try to remember that they, don't know that they're going to get through this and things will be fine, right? So sometimes as a parent, you want to say like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. But they don't know that. You can be reassuring that you're there to listen, but just normalize their experience. Don't minimize it, because then they'll tune you out. Let them vent and just listen. Don't try to fix it, right? I mean, you can make suggestions, ask questions, engage in that conversation, but sometimes they just need us to listen. And sometimes what feels like a crisis in that moment resolves itself after their conversation with you. And you may be up, losing sleep over what they're dealing with, but by the next day, they're fine. Always encourage them to seek support and remind them about the resources. It's easy to say, okay, why don't you just come home this weekend and come home every weekend, because that makes them feel better, right? And I'm not saying they should never go home, but that first 6 weeks, I'm going to go back to that, is so important. I always try to encourage students, if you can do it, stick it out for 6 weeks here without going home, so that you have a chance to build relationships and connections here. Because what I find happens for some of our students is they'll go home on the weekend, and then Sunday nights they're, a mess because they got to go back to campus. All right, next slide. So where they can find help. I already mentioned RAs and residence life staff. There's RAs and there's resident directors who are professional staff on our campus trained in student support. Upperclassmen are a great resource because they kind of been there. You know, if they can connect with a junior or even a sophomore, just to be like, hey, I'm going through this. Did that happen to you? I think they find a lot of comfort in that. And then they can see by talking to that person, oh, they got through it. I can too. I believe, and Alex will correct me if I'm wrong, that all the GEP courses have peer mentors in them.
Yes.
Aha, yay. Peer mentors, they're a wonderful resource. Anybody in the Academic Success Center, just walking in the door being like, I just need to talk to somebody. And if they're not the place, they'll send you right across the way to us here in the counseling center, because the Hazen Health and Counseling Center is you know, where a lot of times we do a lot of cross referrals. There's also the Center on Campus for Gender and Sexual Diversity. There's the Intercultural Center. There are countless offices in the Union. So yeah, that's just a small snippet of places they can go to find help, but those are probably the most familiar to students. Next slide. So I'm going to put a plug in for the Counseling Center just real quick. We are free. We offer free therapy to students as part of their mandatory health fee. So what they can get by coming here is individual counseling. They can get evaluated and assessed. We do have a psychiatrist on staff once a week who consults with students if needed for medication concerns. Our health center is staffed with providers that can prescribe medications if that is what is needed, right? So like, not everybody needs that when they come here, but it's an option, right? Sometimes it's just nice to know that you have a full kind of like comprehensive care package over here in Hazen. We offer workshops on campus. We've really made a push this past couple of years to leave our building and go out to where students are and sort of pop up workshops or informal interactions. This way students get to know us. We can start to build some rapport and some trust, and it demystifies counseling and destigmatizes it. We have the goal of like teaching skills, right? So these workshops, we had a workshop actually yesterday over in the Intercultural Center, and I know it may not sound like a lot of people, but 33 students came, and I got to tell you, that's the largest turnout we've ever had. I think students are wanting to be engaged in these workshops, and that was a workshop on bad habits and creating good ones. It was super exciting. The students were very engaged. So workshops are good. We do assist some students who maybe their level of services that they would like to receive or that they need is outside the scope of our practice. When I say the scope of our practice, what do I mean? What I mean is I have 5 full-time counselors and I have some interns for 7,000 students. Obviously not all seek out counseling, but we really try to serve as many students as we can. And so our sessions are typically every 2 weeks, which isn't always going to meet the needs of every student. So in that case, we may refer them out. Maybe they would benefit from a real comprehensive program that includes like a group or a case manager. We would refer out. We do a lot of outreach programming with various offices around campus, and we do, if needed, provide crisis support. We try to keep our website as updated as possible with all of our upcoming workshops and programs. So if you click on that, I don't know if people will get a copy of this, or put that in the chat, maybe you will see not only what we're offering, but also like how students can get connected. So if I could have the next slide, please. So how to connect. I had to I don't know if y'all can see that. It was I'd take a picture of it to put it in here. Anyway, this is a quick guide for how to what do I do if it's after hours and I want to talk to somebody? Counseling center is closed. We've got a crisis text line. There's always Lifeline or the suicide prevention line, 988. And there's other emergency resources as well. And if you see that QR code down there, students have access to that. This is a kind of a handout that we sort of flyer that we'll post so people can kind of get a snapshot of what we do and the kinds of issues and concerns that we'll address. Next slide. Okay, yeah. So that's the formal part of the presentation. I don't know if Alex was able to get the website. Maybe I didn't
pop it into the chat
presentation properly, but yeah, I do think it's nice and helpful. It's pretty simple to navigate. We offer online scheduling for same-day appointments or for crisis. We also offer online scheduling for like that initial consultation. Students don't like to use the phone anymore, like at all. I get that. Like, I'd rather order a pizza online. I don't want to call and put on hold, right? I mean, so we try to meet the students where they're at to reduce the barriers, to make it as easy as possible for them to get to us. As a parent, if you're worried about your student, I take lots of parent phone calls. While I can't necessarily tell you if your student is coming and accessing our services, I can certainly listen. I can take notes. I can provide guidance, suggestions, and let you know, like answer questions about resources and things like that.
Well,
The
thank you
end.
so much, Darlene.
You're so welcome. That was pretty quick. I don't know if I went too fast, or I didn't want to make it too much content heavy. I just
No,
wanted to hit the highlights.
that was wonderful. I
Thank you.
appreciate it so much.
I'm
Uh,
happy. Do it.
the Q&A session is now, so if you do have any questions for our dear friend Darlene, or if there's anything that I can answer, but she's
Mhm.
the specialist here, she's the expert. So feel free to pop questions into the chat.
Yeah.
I do have one for you, Darlene.
Great.
And that is, what would you say, thinking about our first year students, 2023, starting
Yeah.
excited, rah, 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 anxious. What is maybe the one tip you would want to give them? Like the one takeaway you would want to make sure every student is hearing about homesickness, or just in general, about taking care of their mental health and well-being this semester?
Wow, one thing. I don't know that I could narrow it down to one thing,
It might be an impossible question.
right? I mean, there's so many things I'd want to say to my younger self, right? Or that I said to my kids, or that I say to my students every day. Like, at the end of the day, you got here, you're here, and you've got the resources and the resiliency and the capabilities to be here. Don't doubt yourself, right? Don't doubt yourself. If you're struggling, reach out and ask for support.
Yeah,
It's really that. I guess that'd be the biggest thing. Don't keep it to yourself. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. There's no way you're the only one that's experiencing what's happening, even if it feels like it in the moment.
definitely. And actually, that is such an important point. I mean, sort of reflecting back on what you shared in the presentation, there's so much research out there about these things. There's so many
Yeah.
people paying attention to these issues. We
Yep.
know it's not just, Billy or Susie is the only
Right.
student who's having these
Right.
feelings. It's
Mhm.
most students to some extent
Yeah,
are feeling,
absolutely.
yeah, are feeling something. So it's a nice reminder for our students to sort of understand
Yeah,
they're not alone. They're
they're
not the
not.
only ones feeling these things.
No, and it's okay to normalize that for them, in the sense of like, this happens. People experience this and they survive it, and they go on to be sophomores and juniors and graduate. Um, so yeah, that would be my big thing. And limit social media,
Oh my
because can we
gosh.
talk about social media and mental health for a minute?
Yes.
Nah. That there's a lot of benefits to social media, and I'm not here to diss it, but and it can also give us this like fear I'm missing out of something. Why is everybody else having so much fun and I'm sitting home at my dorm? No, that's not the real world. We all know that. That's just snapshots of a random night. I do think that makes it hard for students too, if they're already struggling, that when they do too much time on social media.
Oh, we have a question from our friend Laura here.
Too
My
sick.
daughter is loving college life, but she hasn't found her balance yet. Now she is sick.
Oh
How do we help
no.
her to slow down without sounding too smothering?
Wow. Oh my gosh, I love, love, love that question.
Yeah.
I think maybe the best thing to do is just, it's going to sound like I'm teaching you how to be a counselor, but you're just going to say, reflect back to your daughter. Wow, you are doing all the things and then kind of outline everything she's doing, and just kind of that sounds exhausting. It sounds exhausting. Are you sleeping? Because I think that's a thing that college students just think, oh, we don't sleep, we're in college. No, you have to sleep, because your immune system's going to crash and burn, just like your poor daughter. I hope she's not too sick. And that's kind of her body's way of telling her to slow down, right? And you're not trying to smother. You're just saying, my favorite thing to say, I just can't help but notice when you talk to me about all the things you're doing, I'm exhausted. Like, how are you feeling? I mean, how are you taking care of yourself or something like that? Just kind of like gentle reminders. Unfortunately, sometimes they got to learn their own lessons on that.
For sure.
But I'm so glad that she's enjoying it though. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And really, you know, after she's feeling better, feel free to point her our way, point her towards the counseling center.
Yeah.
You know, we excel at, you know, those kinds of conversations where we aren't smothering, but where we
Nope.
are just sort of reflecting things back, doing a sort of gentle dig through the series of questions and thoughts and matters in their minds.
Not to mention students hear us differently than they do mom and dad.
It's true. It's true.
My own kids don't listen to me, but other students do. Other young adults do.
It's fun. My wife is a psychologist, and so
Is
some of what
she?
you were saying just then, I was
Okay.
like, oh yeah, no, I'm hearing that at home. I'm hearing that too.
Oh, Alex, we should talk. Yeah, you're getting therapized.
Pretty frequently. Pretty frequently. Thank you for your question, Laura.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Any other questions? I love conversation, so I don't know if my contact info is there, but I can drop that in the chat.
That's too bad.
For my email and my phone number, because maybe you'll think of something after I'm done.
Hazen Thompson, this is my daughter, 3rd year, and she's loving it there. She's in the nursing program.
Oh
I'm
God.
so glad to hear that. That is
Yes.
fantastic news.
That is. Wow.
We have an excellent nursing program, and it can be, I mean, I could never. I could
Oh
just
no,
never.
I'm not smart enough.
I'm
And I'm
not
not
smart
saying that
enough.
to down myself, but that's like hardcore
Yeah.
nursing. So
My
congrats
my
to
neighbor
her.
next door here, she's the pre-health advisor, and
Oh, okay.
hearing some of the conversations they have.
We counsel a lot of juniors in the nursing program.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let you know that.
Well, I am so glad that she is doing well here and enjoying her time at Prop.
Me too. Anything else I can answer? I just popped my email in there. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I check it all day, every day. Well, when I'm not doing things like that. Yeah. Yeah. I love talking to parents, so please feel free. Give me a call. Oh, I'll put the number in there too, eh?
I'm sure, yeah.
You
I'll pop
know,
mine in too, just in case. Oh no, I just sent that to Darlene and not the rest of
oh,
them.
did I? Oh, I just sent it to you. See how
Yeah.
we are? We had a
See?
little private chat going. Let's try this again.
All right. No, I'll take care of it, Darlene.
2414.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.
I
We're going to
appreciate it.
be. Oh, yeah. And thank you, Darlene.
Of
Thank you so
course.
much. Yeah.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
We are going to be hosting these webinars pretty regularly, dealing with a variety of different topics, you know, related to your student and their life here at Brockport. You've got topics such as like dealing with the registration process, definitely things like, you know, how to get involved, best opportunities to get involved, finding a job, getting ready for the career search. You'll be hearing about all of those and more on the parent newsletter, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And as Darlene mentioned, as I mentioned, if there's anything that we can do to help, you've got our contact information there. Please feel free to reach out.
Yes, thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and that your student feels better and that they're all successful. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a
You're
wonderful
welcome.
evening.
Bye, Alex.